Mountain forest at midnight, pale moonlight filtering through branches, cold mist blanketing the ridgeline. The SEAL team advanced steadily, radio crackling with confidence. "Ridge is clear," the voice certain, declaring absolute safety. One SEAL exhaled in relief. "Finally, we can breathe." Suddenly, crack, Watschelten. A single gunshot shattered the silence, the sound echoing through the valley, freezing every man where he stood, heart skipping beats. Every eye turned toward the ridge where they believed nothing could hide. Where are you watching this from? What would your first emotion be if you found yourself in this situation? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe to continue this incredible journey together. At 27, Eva Morales moved through the world like smoke, present but rarely noticed, essential yet easily overlooked. Her compact frame, auburn hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, and sun-weathered skin marked her as someone who had spent years outdoors. But her sharp, observant eyes rarely drew attention because people seldom looked closely enough to see them. Officially, she was a logistics technician temporarily assigned to support the SEAL team's equipment needs. Nothing more, nothing less. The team had made their opinions clear from day one. "She's just here to carry gear, not to fight," they'd tell each other, speaking about her as if she were invisible. They nicknamed her Tag-Along, someone who followed real soldiers without ever becoming one herself. Eva accepted the role without complaint. She ate quickly and quietly during mealtimes, rarely joining the conversations that bonded the team together. She spent most of her time cleaning weapons or updating equipment logs, tasks that kept her busy and out of the way. But occasionally, small details revealed something the others missed entirely. During a mission briefing 3 weeks earlier, when satellite imagery showed inconsistent terrain features, Eva had quietly pointed out shadow patterns that indicated hidden structures. The team leader glanced at her observations, then dismissed them without investigation. "Leave it, Morales. We've got this." During weapons checks, while the SEALs grouped their shots within acceptable ranges, Eva's test rounds found the exact center of every target with mechanical precision. The team noticed but attributed it to luck rather than skill. "Beginner's luck," someone had commented, "happens sometimes." When they practiced night navigation, Eva moved through difficult terrain with an efficiency that suggested extensive training, but her teammates assumed she was simply trying to keep up. The constant dismissal created a quiet weight that Eva carried everywhere. Each "leave it and we've got this" added another layer to her determination to prove her worth when the moment demanded it. That moment came sooner than anyone expected. The mission parameters were straightforward: infiltrate enemy territory, gather intelligence on weapon caches, and extract without engagement. The ridgeline provided perfect overwatch position for monitoring their approach route. Advanced reconnaissance confirmed the area was completely clear of hostile forces. "Ridge is clear," came the confident radio transmission as they moved toward their objective. But Eva felt something the others missed: a subtle wrongness in the silence, an instinctive warning that years of training had burned into her consciousness. She scanned the ridge line through her equipment scope, noting details that standard reconnaissance might have overlooked: wind patterns that suggested artificial barriers, shadow lines that didn't match natural terrain features, movement indicators so subtle they could easily be dismissed as environmental factors. Her hand unconsciously moved toward the aging sniper rifle that standard protocol required her to carry, but that everyone assumed she'd never need to use. Something was wrong with that ridge. But when she opened her mouth to voice her concerns, she caught the familiar dismissive expressions on her teammates' faces before any words escaped. They had made their assessment. The ridge was clear. Eva closed her mouth and continued the mission, but every instinct screamed danger. As they advanced toward the supposedly secure area, she remained hyper-alert, scanning constantly for threats that official reconnaissance had missed. The night air carried too many wrong scents. The silence felt too perfect. The shadows held too many possibilities for concealment. When the single gunshot finally shattered the night, Eva was the only person in the entire unit who didn't flinch in surprise. She had been expecting it. The gunshot's echo was still bouncing off canyon walls when chaos erupted. A SEAL dropped to one knee, crimson spreading across his shoulder, his face twisted in pain and confusion. "I'm hit! Where did that come from?" Rodriguez grabbed his radio, voice tight with urgency. Find the shooter! Ridge was supposed to be clear, but Ava was already moving. Without waiting for orders or permission, she sprinted toward the edge of the ridgeline, snatching up the weathered sniper rifle that everyone assumed was purely decorative equipment. Her movements were fluid, practiced, automatic, the muscle memory of thousands of hours of training that nobody had bothered to ask about. 2 seconds. Wind from the east, she whispered to herself, settling into a prone shooting position among the rocks. Through her scope, the supposedly empty ridge revealed its secrets. A muzzle flash had given away the primary shooter's position, but Ava's trained eye caught something more disturbing. Multiple heat signatures indicating a coordinated ambush team. Her first shot rang out before anyone realized she had taken position. 800 meters away, an enemy sniper tumbled from his concealed nest, his rifle clattering down the rocky slope. The entire SEAL team froze in stunned silence. Who fired that? Rodriguez demanded, whipping his head around to identify the source. Ava didn't waste time with explanations. Her scope was already tracking the second threat. Through the rifle's optics, she could see what the initial reconnaissance had completely missed. A sophisticated ambush position that had been camouflaged with professional expertise. At least 4 shooters were positioned to create a deadly crossfire that would have eliminated the entire team. Her second shot eliminated the machine gunner before he could establish a firing position. The third shot took out a grenadier who was preparing to launch an explosive that would have trapped them in the open. Each round was calculated with mathematical precision. Distance, wind speed, target movement, ballistic drop, variables that most snipers struggled with under ideal conditions, but that Ava processed instinctively even in darkness. The enemy team had planned their ambush perfectly, except for one factor they couldn't have anticipated: a logistics technician who could outshoot their best marksman. Rodriguez and his men watched in amazement as threats they hadn't even identified were systematically eliminated by someone they had considered non-combatant support personnel. How is she making those shots? One SEAL whispered urgently. I can barely see the targets through my scope. Ava's fourth shot ended the engagement completely, dropping the team leader who had been trying to coordinate a retreat and regrouping maneuver. The ridge fell silent again, but this time the silence felt different, empty rather than ominous, cleared rather than threatening. She remained in position for several minutes, scanning for additional threats that might have escaped initial detection. Only when she was completely certain the area was secure did she finally lower her rifle. Ridge is clear, she announced calmly, unconsciously echoing the earlier radio transmission that had proven so dangerously wrong. Rodriguez approached her position, his expression a complex mixture of gratitude, embarrassment, and professional respect. Morales, where the hell did you learn to shoot like that? Ava was already disassembling her rifle with the same methodical efficiency she brought to cleaning equipment. Same place I learned to read terrain features that don't belong, she replied without looking up. The wounded SEAL was receiving medical attention, his injury serious but not life-threatening, thanks to Ava's immediate intervention. Without her quick response, the ambush would have developed into a sustained firefight with predictably deadly results. That was incredible, Rodriguez said, still trying to process what he had witnessed. Why didn't you tell us you were qualified as a marksman? You never asked, Ava replied simply. And when I tried to point out problems with the terrain assessment, you told me to leave it because you had it handled. The truth of her statement hit the team like a physical blow. They had been so confident in their own expertise that they had ignored input from someone whose skills exceeded their own. Rodriguez keyed his radio for the after-action report. Base, this is Alpha Team. Engagement complete. 4 enemy KIA, 1 friendly wounded. Threat eliminated by... He paused. Chum, realizing he didn't know how to properly identify Ava in the official record. By Morales, Ava supplied quietly. Logistics Technician Morales. But even as she said the words, everyone present knew that title no longer adequately described who she was or what she was capable of accomplishing. The ambush that should have killed them all had been neutralized by the person they had most thoroughly underestimated. As they prepared to continue their mission, every team member found themselves looking at Ava with completely different eyes. The tag-along had just saved their lives with shooting that belonged in military legend. But Ava simply shouldered her pack and checked her equipment. ready to continue supporting the mission with the same quiet professionalism she had always demonstrated. The only difference was that now her rifle remained easily accessible rather than packed away as unused gear. Because everyone had learned that sometimes the ridge isn't clear until the right person confirms it. As the team secured the area and treated their wounded colleague, Rodriguez pulled aside the youngest SEAL, Martinez, whose face still showed shock at what they had witnessed. "You don't know her story, do you?" Rodriguez asked quietly, nodding toward Ava as she methodically cleaned her rifle. "You don't know who Morales really is." Martinez shook his head, completely bewildered. "I thought she was just logistics support. Where did that shooting come from?" Rodriguez sat heavily on a boulder, the weight of leadership suddenly feeling heavier than usual. 3 years ago, she was the best sniper in the border militia training program. They called her Silent Fang, a reputation built on shots that other marksmen said were impossible. He gestured toward the ridge where Ava's targets had fallen. Her record was 18 confirmed kills at ranges exceeding 1,800 meters, including mobile targets in high wind conditions. Nobody has ever matched those statistics. Martinez stared at Ava with new understanding. "Then what's she doing running logistics for a SEAL team?" Rodriguez's expression darkened. "Bad mission, really bad mission." 2 years earlier, Ava had been assigned to provide overwatch for a hostage rescue operation in cartel territory. Intelligence indicated minimal resistance, standard extraction protocol, routine assignment for someone with her skills. But intelligence was wrong. The rescue team walked into a trap more sophisticated than anyone anticipated. Multiple sniper teams, coordinated communications, professional tactical coordination that suggested military-level training and equipment. Ava found herself in a target-rich environment where every shot mattered, where split-second decisions determined who lived and who died. She performed flawlessly, eliminating 12 enemy combatants in rapid succession, maintaining perfect accuracy while under heavy return fire. But perfection wasn't enough. While she was engaging distant targets, an enemy team flanked her position and wounded 2 of her teammates before she could reposition to cover them. Both men survived, but barely. One required multiple surgeries and months of rehabilitation. "She blamed herself," Rodriguez continued, watching Ava work with the same meticulous attention to detail that had made her legendary. "Said if she had been faster, better, more aware, her teammates wouldn't have been hurt." The psychological impact was devastating. Despite official recognition for her exceptional performance, despite confirmation that her actions had prevented a complete mission failure, Ava couldn't forgive herself for not being perfect when perfection was required. "She requested transfer to non-combat duties," Rodriguez explained. "Said she never wanted to be in position where someone could get hurt because she wasn't good enough." Martinez watched Ava adjust her scope with the precision of a master craftsman. "But tonight she didn't have a choice," Rodriguez finished. "When that first shot rang out, all her training kicked in. She couldn't stand by and watch people get killed when she had the skills to prevent it." The irony was brutal and beautiful. Ava had transferred to logistics specifically to avoid combat situations where her performance could determine life or death outcomes. But her first night with a SEAL team had placed her in exactly that situation anyway. And this time, she had been perfect when perfection mattered most. "She came back," Martinez said quietly, "without permission, without hesitation." Rodriguez nodded, understanding something about leadership that his training manuals had never taught him. Sometimes the most valuable people on your team were the ones who carried their own standards higher than any official requirement. Ava had spent 2 years punishing herself for being human in an impossible situation. She had walked away from recognition, promotion opportunities, and career advancement because she held herself accountable to standards that exceeded anything the military demanded. But when her teammates needed her, really needed her, all that self-imposed exile evaporated in an instant. She didn't ask for permission to engage. She didn't wait for orders. She didn't consider the implications for her official status or career trajectory. She simply did what needed to be done with the skills she had spent years perfecting. "There's something else," Rodriguez added, his voice carrying deep respect. "Those shots she made tonight, that wasn't just muscle memory or training kicking in. He pointed to the scattered enemy positions on the ridge. She identified a coordinated ambush that our reconnaissance completely missed. She processed tactical intelligence under pressure that our entire team failed to recognize. Martinez followed his gaze, beginning to understand the full magnitude of what had occurred. She didn't just outshoot enemy snipers, Rodriguez continued. She outthought them. She anticipated their positions, predicted their tactics, and neutralized their entire operation before they could implement it. The young SEAL looked back at Ava, who was now helping with medical treatment for their wounded teammate, applying first aid with the same calm competence she brought to everything else. "So what happens now?" Martinez asked. "Does she go back to logistics?" Rodriguez considered the question carefully. "That's up to her, but I know one thing for certain." He stood, shouldering his pack as the team prepared to continue their mission. "From now on, when someone says a ridge is clear, I'm not believing it until she confirms it personally." As they resumed their patrol, every team member found themselves moving differently. They scanned their sectors more carefully. They questioned their assumptions more thoroughly. They paid attention to details they might have overlooked before, because they had learned that the difference between life and death sometimes came down to recognizing capabilities in people you thought you already understood completely. Ava Morales had taught them that the most dangerous mistake wasn't underestimating your enemy. It was underestimating your own team. In the hours following the engagement, something fundamental shifted in the team's dynamics. As medics worked on their wounded teammate and the unit secured the area, conversations took place in hushed tones, but every discussion eventually circled back to the same topic: how completely they had misjudged Ava Morales. Rodriguez watched his men process what they had witnessed. These were professionals who prided themselves on tactical awareness and personnel assessment, yet they had completely missed the most skilled operator in their entire unit. The first gesture of recognition came without words. Martinez quietly approached Ava's position where she sat maintaining her rifle. Without speaking, he set down a freshly cleaned rifle scope, the team's best optics equipment, and placed it beside her. The message was clear. If she was going to be watching their backs, she deserved the best tools available. Other team members followed with similar gestures. Extra ammunition appeared in her pack. Premium cleaning equipment materialized beside her gear. Someone left their backup radio within her reach. None of these offerings came with speeches or explanations. The team communicated through actions, the way professionals acknowledged excellence they had failed to recognize earlier. During their next meal break, something unprecedented happened. Johnson, a 10-year veteran who rarely socialized with support personnel, pulled up a seat directly next to Ava. He didn't make a big production of it, didn't announce his intentions. Simply chose to eat where he could easily include her in team conversations. Others followed his lead. For the first time since joining the unit, Ava found herself surrounded by teammates who actively sought her input on tactical decisions. "What do you think about the approach route?" Rodriguez asked during their next planning session, genuinely interested in her assessment. "The terrain looks clean on satellite imagery," Ava replied carefully, still adjusting to being asked for opinions. "But I'd recommend sending an advanced scout to verify sight lines before the main team commits." Rodriguez nodded and immediately incorporated her suggestion into the mission plan. The transformation wasn't dramatic or sudden. These were professional soldiers who expressed respect through competence rather than emotion. But the change was unmistakable. When they established security perimeters, Ava's position was automatically integrated into the coverage pattern. When they conducted equipment checks, her rifle received the same attention as primary weapon systems. When they discussed contingency plans, her capabilities were factored into tactical calculations. The nickname tag-along disappeared completely, replaced by something that carried genuine respect: shooter. But the most significant recognition came from an unexpected source. Thompson, the team's previous designated marksman, approached Ava during weapons maintenance. "I want you to have this," he said quietly, offering her his personal rifle sling. Worn leather marked with hash marks indicating successful long-range engagements. "Thompson, I can't take that. You earned those marks. And you earned the right to add more," he replied firmly. "I'm good at what I do, but what you did tonight, that was something else entirely." He gestured toward the ridge where her targets had fallen. Perfect shots in darkness, under pressure, against professional opponents who thought they held every advantage. That's not just skill, that's mastery. Ava accepted the sling with quiet gratitude, understanding that she was receiving more than equipment. She was receiving acknowledgement from peers who finally recognized her true capabilities. The wounded SEAL, now stable and conscious, made his own contribution to the new dynamic. "Morales," he called out as the team prepared to resume patrol. "Yes? Next time someone says a ridge is clear?" He grinned despite his pain. "I'm not believing it until you've had a look." The comment drew chuckles from the entire team, but the underlying message was serious. They had learned to trust her judgment over their own assumptions. As they moved out toward their next objective, Ava noticed something that would have seemed impossible just hours earlier. Her teammates positioned themselves where they could easily communicate with her. They checked her equipment status along with their own. They included her in their tactical awareness without making it feel like special treatment. She had become what she had always been capable of being, an integral part of the team rather than an auxiliary presence. The transformation was complete, marked not by ceremonies or speeches, but by the quiet professionalism of soldiers who had learned to recognize excellence wherever they found it. Word of the Ridge engagement spread through military communication networks with the speed that remarkable stories always traveled among professionals who understood their significance. But Ava Morales made no effort to capitalize on the recognition or reclaim her former status as a primary sniper. She continued performing logistics duties with the same methodical attention to detail that had always characterized her work. The difference was that now her role had expanded organically to include responsibilities that matched her actual capabilities. When the team planned missions involving Overwatch requirements, they automatically consulted with her about positioning and sightlines. When they requisitioned equipment, her recommendations carried the weight of someone whose expertise had been proven under fire. When new personnel joined the unit, they heard the story of the Ridge engagement as part of their orientation. Not as a feel-good tale, but as a tactical lesson about the importance of recognizing all available assets. "Don't assume you know what anyone is capable of until you've seen them tested," became the unofficial motto that grew from that night's events. 3 months after the Ridge engagement, Ava received unofficial recognition that meant more to her than any medal or commendation could have provided. During mission planning, when satellite imagery suggested possible sniper threats in their area of operation, Rodriguez turned to her automatically. "Morales, is that ridge actually clear?" The question had become routine, but it carried profound respect. Her teammates had learned to trust her assessment over technological resources or standard reconnaissance reports. "Give me 30 minutes for personal verification," she replied, shouldering her rifle with the same calm professionalism that had made her legendary. Watching her move toward the observation point, Martinez turned to Rodriguez. "As long as she's here, no ridge is ever clear until she says it is." The comment reflected a transformation that extended far beyond individual recognition. Ava had become a symbol of capabilities that existed within teams, but were often overlooked due to assumptions, preconceptions, or simple failure to ask the right questions. Young soldiers joining the unit heard her story and learned to look beyond surface appearances when assessing their teammates' potential contributions. Veteran operators who had served for years without examining their own biases found themselves questioning assumptions they had never previously challenged. The logistics technician who could outshoot professional snipers became a reminder that excellence existed in unexpected places, waiting for the right circumstances to reveal itself. But perhaps most importantly, Ava herself had found peace with the balance between her capabilities and her responsibilities. She had learned that avoiding combat roles hadn't protected her from combat situations. It had only delayed the inevitable moment when her skills would be needed. The Ridge engagement had shown her that perfection wasn't required, only readiness to act when action became necessary. "I don't need my name on any recognition board," she told Rodriguez during a quiet moment while cleaning weapons. "As long as people keep coming home, that's enough." Rodriguez understood that he was looking at something rare in military culture, someone whose personal standards exceeded any external recognition system. Ava Morales had found her place not by seeking status or demanding acknowledgement, but by being undeniably excellent when excellence was required. The ridge that was supposed to be clear had revealed more than hidden enemies. It had revealed the hidden capabilities within their own team. 6 months later, when new intelligence reports suggested sniper activity in their operational area, the entire team's response was automatic and unanimous. Is Morales available for reconnaissance? Rodriguez asked Base Command. Because they had learned that some questions were too important to leave to technology, standard procedures, or assumptions. Sometimes you needed someone who could see what others missed, shoot what others couldn't hit, and do what others thought impossible. Sometimes you needed someone who had been there all along, waiting for the moment when being perfect mattered more than being recognized. The Ridge engagement had lasted less than 10 minutes, but its impact continued to influence military culture months later. Not because of the exceptional marksmanship, though that had been remarkable, but because it demonstrated that the most valuable assets were sometimes the ones you already possessed but had never bothered to identify. Eva Morales had become proof that excellence doesn't announce itself. It simply waits for the right moment to serve. Subscribe to HL Stories if you believe not every hero needs recognition. Some just need to be there, right when it matters most.